Hello and welcome to Church at Home with Rachael. My name is Rachael Parker. My pronouns are she and her. I am the Anglican priest for Dayspring Ministries, which is a collaboration of St. Mary's Edgerton, St. Saviour's Vermilion, and St. Thomas Wainwright in the beautiful Diocese of Edmonton in Alberta, Canada. I'm glad to have you with me today. I welcome you back. It's been 2 weeks since I've been here, almost 2 weeks. I was on some holiday time and some time of reflection and just sort of recuperating from life. I'm glad to see you back today. I'm glad we're here. I missed you. I had spoken earlier before I went on holidays. I was probably going to come back with a pop in during my holidays with a video following up on the election. But I didn't because it took so long for things to happen. I should have known. But I really would like to talk about the election and what has happened and what didn't happen, and just some perspective on that. It appeared to me, because I've sort of taken a hiatus from, not a complete one, but a semi-hiatus from watching the news and things like that. I spent a lot of my time reading books and watching Hallmark Christmas movies. It's the only time I get a chance to do that. It's when I take holidays in November. And just sort of recuperating. My husband was away. He's working full-time again, and his first week full-time, he was off to Edmonton for a chaplain conference. So I had the house from Monday to Friday, myself and Dude, the dog. And we just sort of putzed around and did some cleaning and reading and, watching TV and sleep and having lots of naps and things like that. So I took a bit of a break. I checked in on the news to see what was happening, but really understood how much I needed to take a break from the news, both American and Canadian. But recognizing how fast-paced I allow myself to become when I follow things like the news and the politics and things like that. Now, I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I think there are times, especially leading up to elections, above and below the border, when we do need to engage and not disengage. I think it's important that we pay attention to those things. But the thing is, we need to find a balance there. And amazingly enough, it seems that a balance has been found in American politics. Once again, there was not a resounding, from my perspective, there was not a resounding, this is who we are as Americans. A lot of the races were really, really close. Even with some people that people thought were just, nuts. They were too close. And hence it took a long time for those races to be called. And in Georgia, of course, they need to have a runoff. You can all guess who I hope doesn't win. But interestingly enough, the prediction of a red wave or a red tsunami, as some were saying, that would take over America and help the whole world to recognize who Americans really were, didn't happen. What happened was an uncomfortable, in my understanding of American politics, is an uncomfortable balance that the Democrats will still hold, regardless of what happens in Georgia, because of the vice president, will still hold the ability to control the Senate, unless, of course, something comes up in which Democrats and Republicans can work bipartisanly to move something forward or stop something that maybe shouldn't go forward in the Senate. So that can happen. That the Senate is not going to be pushed around by one party or the other. In the House, the Democrats did okay, but the Republicans did better. And so they will take control of the House. However, the state of the Republican Party may indicate that things might not be all that smooth, that it won't be an automatic everything the Republicans want, the Republicans can get, because the Republicans are not uniform in their status, in their understanding of what they represent and who they represent. And that actually, as confusing and frustrating as it might be, may indeed lead to a place where people have to learn to work together, where people can't just unilaterally call other people names and tromp all over other people's opinions and positions and ideas, because it won't necessarily be a given that everything that the Republican Party puts forward, or a Republican congressperson puts forward, will simply be a rubber stamp. because there may indeed be enough dissension within the Republican ranks that conversation and working together may actually help them to come back to understanding who it is they represent. They don't represent the big corporations. They don't represent a party. They represent the constituents, all of them, who voted or did not vote in the election. And I know that sounds very Pollyanna, but that's what I really believe, that there can be hope. Even the Marjorie Taylor Greenes of the world, who seem so whacked out and out there, I do believe that at some point in their heart, some point when they said, I would like to offer myself for public service, there was some kind of a little grain of respect for the system and a belief that they could help to move the system forward, move the world forward for the good of the people. Now, quickly, obviously that gets tarnished and maybe get thrown out. But I do believe somewhere deep in the whole heart and soul of even the most ridiculous people who run for politics, there is a grain of hope that maybe good things can come and that they have something to contribute. So I know I'm sounding ridiculous, but I'll pray for them and pray for my Canadian politicians as well, who are the same way inclined, that together they might find ways to move the world forward. People, one of the things you couldn't miss if you were paying any attention to the American election was the different ways that the groups, the parties, were presenting their ideas and their thoughts. And one of the things that the president was clear about was all those things that he and the people in the Senate and in the House were able to move forward for the good of the American people. And the truth is that having the splits, having the discussion, the rancor in the ranks, having all of that actually probably makes for better decision making than if one party had complete control of House, Senate, and White House. Because then there's no check and balance. There's no way to stop somebody from making a really big mistake. There's no way of keeping egomaniacs in check. But this way, there's hope. It may not seem like it, but there is hope. There is also hope because look at the number of young people who came out to vote across the country. And in Canada, that's another election, participation in election. That's a concern we have too, that we can have record-breaking turnouts for an election and still have a very, very small percentage of our population actually turn out to vote. We need to encourage people to get out, to have their say, to vote, to exercise their right as citizens, their responsibility as citizens. But we need to do so in a way that recognizes that every person, regardless of party, regardless of socioeconomic background, regardless of their race, their color, their creed, what they believe or don't believe, every single person has the right to be represented well. And every single person, at least in Canada, who has the legal right to vote has the right to go out and exercise that vote without fear of intimidation, without thinking that my vote has been canceled by someone else's, because you can never cancel out someone else's thoughts. You can't. You can shout louder than they can, but you can't stop their thoughts from being. We need to find a way to work together in all things. And maybe this election is a way of recognizing that it doesn't need to be about us and them. What it needs to be is about us, whether it's the American peoples, the Canadian peoples, citizens of the world. We are living in a time of great turmoil. We're looking at droughts. We're looking at seasons when we have these incredible weather patterns that, once in a century is becoming once every couple of years around the world, in North America, in Canada. We need to begin to work together. And that doesn't mean we all have to agree with one another. It just means we have to work together to be able to move things forward in a positive manner. And so even though, I really would have loved to have seen more Democrats do better in the House or see them take a better, cleaner sweep of the Senate, that doesn't really matter because there is opportunity for good work to be done in the next couple of years below the border, as there is always opportunity for good work to be done above the border as well. May God bless everyone who let their name stand. And may God bless their families who encourage them, because Lord knows it's got to be hard on them too. But let's pray for those people who are now looking at the opportunity to change the world, that they might truly want to change the world for the better. Bless them and encourage them, and don't pray against them. Pray for them that good will be done. I thank you for hanging out with me today. I will be back again tomorrow for Church at Home with Rachael, and it's good to be back. I'll see you later. God bless. Bye-bye.